we're back. We are back. It feels like we missed a week or something. Like, doesn't it feel like it's been a little longer than a week? I don't know. I just feel like it was probably because it was a long weekend.
It was a long weekend.
I got back from LA Monday. We had a good time, and yeah, we're back. We're back to some not so good news, I guess, to lead off. CJ Gardner-Johnson looks like he's out of town, and kind of goes into what the theme is going to be, and that's losing some defensive players. So,
yeah.
What do you think about that?
No, I'm sorry, it's like a little stuttery there. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, I kind of went into this offseason thinking Jalen Hurts, CJ Gardner-Johnson, kind of all the other big free agents, Hargrave, Bradbury, that they were out the door. But I figured, they'd be, figuring out a way to keep CJ Gardner-Johnson while extending Hurts. That seemed like the most in-house kind of things that you had to do. And of course, pending with Jason Kelce. But I think he's going to do one more year in him for sure. So you got to obviously keep some cap space for him as well playing. So Wolves and Brandon Graham, I think they're trying to restructure that. So all those other players was kind of okay with going, but I think CJ Gardner-Johnson definitely going to hurt. But, I'm sure they have some other things up their sleeve. Maybe have to find some other ways to kind of go about it. But, maybe there's something internal that we don't know. It seems like if they wanted to keep him, though, they would and make something work. So I'm kind of curious, or did this have another plan?
Yeah. I think that if you look at the history of the Eagles in recent years, even dating back to Andy Reid, our childhood kind of molded what the organization became under Jeffrey Lurie, regardless of who the coach was, regardless of anything really. They always pay certain positions and they prioritize certain positions, and that's the defensive line and the offensive line. Obviously, the quarterback is something every NFL franchise prioritizes. They don't seem to pay positions like running back and safety too much. And they could pay Malcolm Jenkins. They did. They gave Brian Dawkins the deal. It just doesn't seem like it's something that they commonly do. You really have to be a leader, someone special. And I thought that's what they saw in CJ Gardner-Johnson. And I really don't think the question is, whether or not they think he's good or anything like that. I think that we're not used to having this kind of talent at our other skills positions in a league where wide receivers are making $20 million a year now. You have Devontae Smith. You have Landon Dickerson coming up for a deal on an offensive line that's probably going to need some retooling, when guys like Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson eventually do hang it up. You have guys coming in. So the Eagles still have Brandon Brooks on their payroll. They're still going to have Fletcher Cox on their payroll because of the restructures that they've done. And I think that they're not trying to get themselves in those situations anymore. They're trying to get younger, and they were just ahead of schedule. Look, they hit every free agent pick. No one thought about CJ Gardner-Johnson until he was an Eagle in August. So to think that, they have to make a move for every single guy and sign every single guy, it would be great. But really what the product was is just bad timing of, it's a gift and a curse being a Super Bowl team, because usually that means you hit on a lot of guys that probably were rentals, and you're probably going to need to let them go and go do it again. So what the Eagles hope is that their offense and the guys that they do have make up for some of these departures on defense, or just overall in the team, sort of like the Kansas City Chiefs had to go through. And every team that's good and has a quarterback that gets paid top dollar has to go through. You saw the Cowboys have to go through that. You're going to see the Giants with their now extension of Daniel Jones. They're going to have situations where they cannot spend as much in free agency that they'd want. So really the draft becomes crucial. Finding those bargain kind of deals becomes crucial. And then really comes down to your leaders, your top heavy contracts. Jalen Hurts, how good is Jalen Hurts and how good is Nick Sirianni to lead this team that's inevitably going to get younger, less experienced, and lose talent? So it's the reality of the NFL. The parity model is so strong, and that's what every good team has to face. So they're going to face that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely hit the nail on the head there. And I think it's kind of like, it makes you wonder, like, okay, if Jalen Hurts didn't have the season that he had and was somewhere in between what he was this year and in 2021, maybe a little closer to 2021, do they have to give him that extension? Do they wait another year? And then maybe you're putting his cap hit towards, I mean, his cap hit's not going to hit this year, but maybe you're giving other contracts because you could have his cap hit kind of prolong it. Like he could play this year and then you give him the contract extension, big bonus. And then it's like, okay, then his cap hit starts going. So I think that was probably something that they weren't necessarily, they were prepared to do,
Right.
but who could have thought that he would have, like, we all knew he was going to be great,
Right.
but to the extent of his greatness where it's like, okay, well, now he's in every conversation for a top 5 quarterback, not just Eagles homers. I mean, who's a better quarterback in the NFC right now? Aaron Rodgers is leaving.
There aren't. Yeah, there aren't any.
Yeah.
And to be honest, you're right. I think that the minute the season ended, I think the number one priority became Jalen Hurts, and I think that's what they've been trying to get done. And at the end of the day, like, whether they expected it or not, and the cap hits and this and that, end of the day, you're not just looking at 1 year. Like, they're not giving Jalen Hurts a contract and saying, hey, who can we fit? That's why the GM job in the NFL and working in a front office is so hard, because you're not just making Tetris pieces fit 1 year. You're looking 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, and you're seeing, okay, well, this guy's contract gets here, and we might have to have these guys resign. You have to make everything fit for multiple years at a time. And it's almost impossible to forecast certain things. So what the Eagles are learning how to do, and Howie Roseman, believe it or not, is still learning how to create a team where you're paying the quarterback and you can pay the guys you prioritize. And then in years forward, you're not screwed. In 2 years, you're not like, man, we have to blow all this up and we lose AJ and Devontae and everyone's gone and Goddard. And they want to keep the core intact as long as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's not a better quarterback clear cut in the NFC right now based on what we saw last year. And based on what we know about Jalen Hurts' work ethic, if you could just give him everything he needs and fill guys in, build from that kind of, that like young guys that play hard kind of culture on defense, you could probably get through the NFC that way. And when you get to the AFC, you probably need your offense anyway, because we saw what Mahomes did to the Eagles defense, even when it had all those players. It's just really tough to stop quarterbacks like that. If you get to the Super Bowl, you need to be able to score. And you just need to be able to score in general. There's dogfights in the playoffs, don't get me wrong, but the Eagles have an offense that is going to get exponentially better, I believe, in the future. And Jalen Hurts being given all that he needs, an elite offensive line, a strong run game, weapons on the outsides, in the slot, we know he's a stud if you just give him the pieces, period. Like, so keep doing it. And that's kind of what it is. Everyone always we're making those excuses. Oh, he's great on a great team. Well, we always want a great team. So Howie Roseman is doing that because he knows he's great on a great team. And the problem, I think a lot of people talk about how Howie Roseman's an overcorrector. And I think that a lot of GMs are, and what Howie did with Carson Wentz. Now, Wentz had his own meltdown, but the players put around Wentz were atrocious. And once they paid him, they couldn't keep a team worth a damn around him. So I think Howie's going to be like, look, we need to keep this offense intact and go for it. And that's really what the priority became after the season. And he kind of failed doing that with Carson Wentz. And, as much as people dislike Carson Wentz, I'm not a fan of the guy either, the way it ended and all that. But, we struggled through those seasons, having Aguilar and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside starting game.
Yeah, you can't do that with those guys anyway. And in hindsight's 2020, I mean, I think after the 2019 season where Wentz did all that with such limited talent, it was kind of like, okay, well, what else are we going to do? Go get another quarterback? It was kind of like we kind of just had to do that, but the team wasn't built around. And then Wentz had the concussion and just kind of like completely fell off the face of the earth. But that's sort of like, you got to start paying the guys and build a team around. So I think that we're learning from those mistakes of evaluating better talent, drafting in the SEC now, which is huge. They do the scouting for you. But I think that their mindset is, okay, let's take a look at the NFC. We can control the ball 36, 38 minutes a game. We run the ball well. We got the read option. We got all the skill position. Maybe they win games next year 30-24. Maybe it's more of like that. Maybe the other team that they possess the ball, they're scoring points as well. But we possess the ball so well on offense this year that if they can just kind of dominate and just sort of continue on offense, we can have those games where we run for 200 yards. And then their defense is so gassed. They're not doing anything. Our guys are well rested. They're hungry. They want to prove themselves. And a defense loves when you're possessing the ball, controlling it. They're off the field less. And I think I think their mindset is we can just run on offense, and we have to prioritize that around Hurts. We have to give them the money, and we'll try and, we have good talent on defense. We just kind of got to fill the holes, and it's going to look a little different. But this is a big opportunity for a bunch of guys to step up on defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to your point about, the defense loving being off the field, absolutely correct. The second thing the defense loves, and just like baseball, what's the biggest thing in baseball? You're a big look at the Phillies shirt. I think, no, is that Sixers shirt?
Sixers, yeah.
Sixers. All right. Well, it's the same colors, the red. He's
a
big Phillies fan.
Yeah.
We're big Phillies fans. I love the Phillies. What is the one thing, and why the Astros won, that batter, not in that series, in the cheating series? Why did the Astros win? Because why? Because their batters could do what to the pitcher?
They knew what pitch was coming.
They knew what pitch was coming. So when you're up 21-3 early in a game because your offense goes crazy, what does the defense know is coming?
They should throw the football.
Passing. Exactly. So when it's easy to know that a pass is coming, you take the run game out of the game with your offense. And it's easier for a defense if they're worse talented, but the team's throwing. You still have Hassan Reddick. You still have Josh Sweat. You're probably bringing Brandon Graham back. You have Jordan Davis stepping in, and you have draft picks to continue to build this team up. And then how he swings a trade here, trade there potentially. You'll get guys that you can just kind of build a defense that's like, hey, the pure talent might not be there exactly, like the proven pure, like veteran cornerback that cost, over $10 million on both sides, stuff like that. But you'll have enough talent on the defense. And, he slapped it together last year too. He signed Hassan Reddick, who became the best pass rusher in football, or arguably probably top 3 behind, Bosa, Parsons, guys like that. But you get the point. He grabbed him for a pretty good deal. Now he has him, so he doesn't need that. Now we need a safety. We need a corner here. We have some pieces. They could be a little young and inexperienced because they still have what really matters, and that's the pass rush and the ability to score points and possess the ball. So you have your offense is the defense's best friend. They score and they keep the ball in their hands.
Yeah.
And so your defense, who knows? Maybe maybe James Bradbury was really good, but who knows how difficult it is for our defense to replace a guy like that? You really don't know, honestly, because our defense is pretty darn easy to play in when you have that much pressure on the quarterback and that good of an offense on the other side. So, putting some guys around, I did fall in love with the personalities on this defense. It was a special team, but honestly, it's Jalen Hurts' team, and you build around him and you say, let him carry you, and he has. And that's what people are going to start realizing is this team's going to lose talent and change, but this team's still going to be good because of the offense, man. The offense is something different. It is.
Yeah, and not to knock any of those guys in the secondary. I loved them all last year. They stepped up and played well, but the reality was, we're Jonathan Gannon, dropping 7 almost every play. So it really is that front four that's really causing a lot of plays. I mean, we had some interceptions for sure, and a lot were forced, but I mean, our biggest thing was sacks.
Yeah,
and it's just like that was just negative plays. Yeah, I mean, an insane number of sacks that was largely from, front four. It's not like we're sending guys really off the edge, additional pass rushers. So keeping those guys intact, creating those negative plays. It's 2nd and 8, and we get a 5-yard sack. It's 3rd and 13. Much easier to play defense. And that's kind of what we did. We had a lot of those sacks that were felt like a lot of, big turnovers. Of course, there's sacks on 3rd down, but we had so many drives where it was 1st and 2nd down. We get a big sack, and it just kills the drive.
Yeah, it's like
Joe Burrow said, he's like, I don't care if I get sacked on 3rd down. He's like, I'm trying to make a play. If I get sacked, it's like it is what it is, and it's like that's so true. But we had so many of those on 1st and 2nd down that just kill a drive. It's like a holding penalty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like a holding penalty. Exactly. It's drawing a holding penalty is like getting a sack. It's the same thing. It's a drive killer. It sets you back. It demoralizes you. And I'll tell you what. Another thing is that can get talent, whatever. You know, they're great. I wish them the best. But I was at the NFC Championship game, and if you play a team, they came in, the 49ers were talked about as this great physical team, most physical team in the league. They were calling their quarterback Brocky, and we knocked them out in the first round, like clean out. We didn't need anyone else on the field. It didn't matter if we could have had Namdi playing corner that day. It didn't matter. We literally destroyed their offensive line early in the game, hit their quarterbacks. They couldn't do anything. Their whole offense was like terrible. It was just shut completely down because of that front four. And so, you know, you have the talent up front, and now you're bringing in a new defensive coordinator who, to be honest, again, no disrespect to CJ and James Bradbury, but he's going to have his mold of players to get. And, you know, there's always room for a good corner or a versatile safety like that, but you don't know exactly like who he trusts and who he can go, you know, get for cheaper prices, and that will work in what he wants to do. So you kind of have to just take that risk. If you hire a coach, you kind of have to get what he wants, or it's not really worth him being your coach. And he has to play within a budget as well. I'm sure he would have loved some of those guys that are leaving, like Hargrave and CJ, but you know, it is what it is. They have to find new versions of those guys, younger guys that they can build around. And, you know, I'm excited to see what they do with that. And then there's still some guys here that can play, that can really, you know, make a difference and be difference makers. And a lot of people are saying just Desai's running a 3-4 defense is mostly what he does. What would you feel about that? Do you think they could do like some sort of hybrid with big Jordan Davis at nose tackle? I mean, in Chip's defense, Jordan Davis would have been a stud, right?
Yeah, he would have occupied so much space, as Chip would say, and you know, he'd be blocking, you know, holding down space. That way Kiko could go out there and make plays. I mean, that was the design of the system. Big Benny Logan had some nice
he was one of our favorite players back then.
I love that guy. It's a shame he wasn't in the league as long, but really good player for those years in nose tackle. I'm not a fan of the 3-4 as much. I mean, you can obviously modify and kind of put more interior pass rushers, but I just like big bodies on the line. So, you know, if that's, you know, if they're kind of doing like a 5-down lineman, maybe that gives them more versatility with Hassan Reddick. I just kind of figured that if we do a 3-4, it's probably going to look more like a 5-2-4 almost, with a sort of, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I don't think that you can just. I think a lot of people say, you know, this and that about, you know, what the formations are going to be, and I just think at this point in the NFL, I think the best defensive coordinators can do a little bit of everything, and they build it more around who they have. So, you know, sometimes you might see Hassan Reddick standing up off the edge and coming off the edge. You might see him drop back a little bit. Like everyone kind of always wants to experiment with like disguising things and dropping pass rushers back. We see that with every D coordinator. But, you know, for the most part, he'll be rushing the passer as well as Josh Sweat. And, you know, whether it's standing up, coming from different angles. And then, you know, you might have some times where your linebackers, you have more big run stopping guys on the field with 2 linebackers. Sometimes you have 1. I just think you have to, nowadays it's based on the system or the matchup and the system the other team's running. Passing teams that spread you out, you want littler guys on the field to cover and run around. If it's a more physical team that runs the ball better, then you probably need to, you know, have the personnel to be able to stop the run. So there's no real one way. It's like we were watching UFC on Saturday night, and I think, you know, the best way to describe a really good UFC fighter is somebody that can do a little bit of everything. They can go to the ground. They're not going to get choked out. They can defend on the ground, and they can box on their feet and defend on their feet as well. So, you know, the more things you can do as like sports have evolved to that point. Like UFC back in the day, if you could knock someone out, you were one of the best, right? Or wrestle the best. Boxing, same thing. Any sport, baseball, I'm sure, hockey, NBA, all of that stuff. So like you always had to evolve. NBA players, they used to just be like 6'2" guards. Now there's 6'7" guys that dribble and score down low, and, you know, 6'11" guys that do that. So like every sport evolves, and I think that's what defensive coordinators have really come to is it's really they've run a lot of different things. So I'm excited to see what kind of stuff Sean Desai has. Just see the different looks, and I know we have the talent to get it done. And there's really no excuses on my end. I mean, we didn't lose enough for me. I mean, we lost some really good players, but we just had a stacked team. Like that's what it is.
You know? Yeah, no, they still got a good core in place, and, you know, there's definitely 100,000%. They are really expecting a big year from Jordan Davis this year. I think they really expect him to kind of like get in that full-time role and as that nose tackle, just taking. I mean, anytime he's on the field, it's two blockers at all times. I mean, it was close to what Fletcher Cox would do like in his prime, where it was two pass rushers. However, Jordan Davis is much larger of a man, so I think that they're gonna lean into that. Maybe they sign another guy like a Sue or something like that, like another guy that's just going to kind of clog up the space, because really we call them trash compactor sacks last year, where it's just pushing that front back and letting those edges go around. And like with Jordan Davis and big guys like that, I mean, you saw what Lyle Joseph and Sue did, coming in, even, obviously at the end of their careers. I mean, we pulled them off the couch and we're like, just get in there, occupy space, push it back a little bit, let those guys run off the side. And if they continue to do that, and I don't expect anything less. So, I mean, the amount of sacks that Son Reddick had last year is ridiculous. So maybe he doesn't have that many sacks, but I expect him to have about 12, 13 sacks again and be very productive.
Yeah. Oh, he's great. And you're right. Crushing the pocket inside just kills quarterbacks, especially guys that aren't mobile. Like, you got to collapse the middle of that pocket. And the quarterbacks in the NFC, they can move, they can run a little bit, and we have the edge rushers to get them too. So NFC East too. So we have really like everything it takes, and we can find guys. I mean, the draft is going to be telling. Like they trust Jordan Davis a lot to have a big year. Who do they get alongside of that? Because they're going to take they have to take a defensive lineman in the first round. I just think that there's no way they can't. If they lose Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, then you have to pick. I mean, you can't go wrong with another defensive lineman. So you get an edge guy, you get an inside guy. I really think that they're going to go with a pick that people don't really see at first, like as a flashy pick, as usual, it seems, but it'll be like a really solid player. And I think you need to give this defensive line, this interior, some more youth and some guys to mold. Whoever the D line coach is, I honestly don't even know who it is, but give that guy some bodies to really mold into talent. And I like the idea of maybe signing a veteran like an Ndamukong Suh last year and Linval Joseph that we had last year. But I really do think this thing needs a youth injection, and they'll be thankful to have a guy that's like a first round prospect under the team control for 4 years and able to get in there and make plays. So, I know there's a lot of good D tackles this year, so you got to go get one first, second round, something like that. And I love those picks. I love trenches. I'm a trenches guy.
I mean, you have to be. I mean, that's the Eagles football. You just got to win in the trenches.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hope they don't overwater the field in the Super Bowl and you lose because of that. And I'll never let that go. And that's I was robbed of an experience. We all were, but it's fine.
It was. That was rough. That was brutal. But hopefully next year they can get the same kind of pressure and collapse that middle of that pocket and dominate on D that way.
After the draft, we got to do a power rankings of all the quarterbacks in the NFC, because I think we really need to map this out, that there is a very large talent issue in the NFC. And I expect a lot of them, there's a lot of QB situations in flux, even in the NFC. There's a lot of
I want to do that, after the draft, and also like maybe closer to like training camp, because you never know who's going to get traded.
No, people get traded. I think I mean, lastly, Aaron Rodgers, do you think he gets moved before the draft? I think he has to, right?
Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson. There's guys that are. I think Lamar Jackson's going to play for the Ravens this year.
Yeah,
they gave him that transitional tag. So if you want Lamar Jackson, you have to offer him a big deal. And then if the Ravens say, okay, well, we can either match that and keep him, or we can say, no, you guys get him, but they'll get 2 first-round picks from you. Yeah, isn't that it's like an auto trade option? And I don't think Lamar Jackson really is too happy about it, because he just wants to be on his new team. If the Ravens aren't interested in him, but they're paying him, and he kind of has to, like, he can't sit out. He can hold out if he wanted to, but I would not. I don't know, man.
You're giving up 2 first rounders, and you're going to have to Give him
And,
a big contract. Yeah,
right.
that's
I mean, yeah.
I
And
just
it sucks
can't
because
do
he's
that.
not in the team's building. Like,
Yeah,
it's it's different if you get him and you have him for like 1 year and see what's up, but like you have to commit to a big deal with him, and I think you'd have to do that anyway. So I don't know if it's as big of a thing, but I mean it just makes you not even able to go after him, and the negotiation price is fixed. Like if a team was like, hey, look, we'll give you a second and a fourth for Lamar Jackson, it'd be like, well, heck no. If you're like,
yeah,
okay, we'll give you a first and a third, they're like, well, no, the asking price is literally 2 first-round picks. So it's like you can't. It's
yeah,
like an auto option. Like you can't, or he'll play for us for another
yeah.
year.
And
I
this
don't know.
isn't Madden where you can just throw around first round picks like that.
No, it's not. It's not. You get first round picks are very valuable, as you're seeing right now with the Eagles. The Eagles, imagine they traded all that for one of those quarterbacks. It didn't really work out the way we thought, and we have no first round picks and a bad quarterback. So I'm glad Jalen Hurts helps that so much. We have picks, we have everything. I can't wait for the draft.
Yeah,
Free agency is next week. Free agency is next Wednesday. So our show next week is going to be crazy. So stay tuned for that. We're going to have a lot of news, a lot of stuff to talk about. But at the end of the day, the Eagles are probably final prediction on the Eagles offseason for me is that if you're a fan of flashy off seasons where a lot of new big time names are brought in, it's not going to be this year. It's absolutely not. It's if you're a fan of rookies and new younger guys to mold and make some moves that aren't really expected, and then just believe in the guys you have already in Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown and those guys coming back and Devontae Dallas, the elite O-line, Kelsey, hopefully. And it's going to be a good offseason for you. And I love that. I love that we have continuity. So I'm ready for it.
yeah. I think our flashiest move comes in July, August.
I think our flashiest move comes in the draft when we pick
Well,
some
we get
stud.
our guys in the draft, but I think that free agent trade,
We'll
how
make a trade.
there's going to be one impact player that's going to be hanging around that he gets to kind of fill this thing out. So that's what I'm expecting.
He always fills every starting position out by the end of this training camp period. We have every guy that we need. Like it's crazy what this guy can do, and I know he's hungry. I know they're hungry. So
yeah, and we never get the big guy in the free agency really at the beginning. We don't really go for that. We go for other guys. We go for like Hassan Reddick, who like now that looks like one of the greatest signings of last year, and it's just like so. I'm excited.
It's like what I do in 2K. I go to the guys that don't have any offers, and I offer them contracts because they're still good, but they're not like Michael Jordan. It's like, someone lower key that you're like, oh, I'm going to add this guy to my roster, and everyone's looking at one guy, and you get this guy, and you're like, yeah, that was the best pickup. That's what Howie Roseman does. He's a magician with it. So I'm ready to see what he can whip up. He'll keep this team competitive, and you know what? I believe in Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni and the guys. So I can't wait to see Brian Johnson coaching the offense up. I think they're going to be unreal. So Jalen Hurts ain't worried about nothing. I ain't worried about nothing. NFC team to beat, Philadelphia Eagles, trying to go back. So
I couldn't agree more.
Tune in next week.
Yeah.
Tune in next week
for a wild first day of free agency.
Free agency episode is next week. Thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah.